Hello, I'm Phil Rude, and I'm an illustrator, comic book artist, and sometimes writer. Today I'm going to be inking this comic panel. This is a newer page from my Creative Island graphic novel. I initially started this project, 3 years ago, a little over that. I initially finished the art for this story earlier this year, and in reviewing and tightening up the script, I started to have some more ideas. So I've gone into it and added a few more scenes. I'm drawing pages for it again. I talked about this with Heather in our Creative Island discussion. And I said something to the effect of, I don't know if I'll ever be done with this project. It's one I do first and foremost for me, and right now, the process of making it is what it's all about. So, this is one of those things that I just enjoy working on. And so I'm going to work on it for as long as I need to until I decide that it's done or done enough, or I just need to move on from it. But for right now, I'm hanging in with it. This panel introduces a character that I'm currently referring to as the Shadow Pope. I don't know if that name will stick for good or not. I hate naming things. I'm terrible at character names and title names and things like that. I don't even have a name or a title for this video as of right now that I'm recording this, and that will probably take me longer than the actual recording of this. But for inking this panel, I am using primarily my Copic multi-liners. These are fine liners, a lot like microns. I'm using a couple microns in here. I sneak a couple in there. But I feel like these are, in my opinion anyway, these are better fine liners. They don't dry up as fast. And if they do, they are refillable. They have a plastic nib that keeps a really tight line, clean line. And the nibs are also replaceable. They're a little more expensive, but they're also made of like aluminum. The bodies are aluminum. And, they last you a long time. I'm not sponsored by Copic, but just throwing it out there. I'm open to it. Hit me up. They also make a disposable multi-liner that is not refillable and are made of plastic, but they also hold a really good line. I think these are quality pens. In the meantime, while I'm inking, I'm going to be talking about movies and streaming, and yeah, it's going to be some complaining. Also, quick side note, I am recording this in my garage. It's Florida, it's November, which means we're finally getting some not terrible weather in Florida. It's nice and cool tonight, and my garage is a good, quiet place to be, for the most part. I want you to imagine, if you will, that the year is 1998, and Blockbuster Video makes an announcement that in addition to renting and selling movies, they're going to start producing their own movies as well. And that the only place you'll be able to see these movies is from renting them from your local Blockbuster Video. To the people who are watching this or reading this who are not old enough to remember this time, let me clarify. This did not actually happen. Let's just roll with it, though. This is kind of a thought exercise I'm doing here, so bear with me. If this announcement had been made, I feel like the world would have scoffed and just kind of been skeptical and said, you're a video retail store. What do you know about making movies? Doesn't mean you know how to make a movie. Soon after that, all the other chains like your Hollywood Video, your Movie Gallery, whatever regional chain existed in whatever tri-state / sister city area you lived in, they would start producing their own exclusive movies too. They would have to, just to stay competitive. Eventually, even the small mom and pop video stores would have to start making their own movies that have production value akin to like public access TV. They would have to do it just to have a prayer of staying competitive. And let me just sidebar this right here. The movies that would have been made by the mom and pop stores would probably be the ones you actually wanted to see. They'd have the quality of like cable access TV, and there would be so many of them. Every little town you went to that had a place to rent movies, even if it was just like the corner of the grocery store or the back of the liquor store or behind the counter of the bait shop, they would all have their own set of movies made by the people who owned the store and starred the people of that town, and would probably be terrible and also amazing. Every time you went on vacation somewhere and stayed in a small town, you would have an entire new library of movies that you had never heard of and you could only get there. I am starting to wish more and more, the more I talk about it, the more I'm wishing that this had actually happened. That would be amazing. But the flip side of that coin is that if you lived in like a bigger market that had like 2 or 3 video stores, everybody would be complaining, oh, I have to belong to 3 video stores. You subscribe to Netflix now, but you used to have like a membership at a video store, and you would have to belong to like 3 of them, and you would have to drive all over town if you wanted to see all the exclusive things that every video store was making. It would be like today, the way people complain about, oh, I have to have a Disney Plus and a Hulu and Amazon Prime, and I have to have all of these things because I want to watch all of these shows. You would have to do this with like 3 different video chains just to see like 12 new movies and 25 seasons of TV that each store produced every year. And at a certain point in this alternative video rental store / movie studio timeline, you would take a look at each store and realize how ridiculously big they are. And then it would dawn on you that the movies weren't made to fund the giant store. The movies were made to take up shelf space in the giant store. Because what's the point of having an enormous retail space if there aren't enough movies to fill all the shelves? It's a backwards business model. And this is admittedly a really weird thought exercise, but that's the reality of a mentally mundane. This is admittedly a really weird thought exercise, but that's the reality of a mentally mundane day job and the directions it allows one's brain to wander. It's also the reality we live in. Netflix and Amazon were both mail order retailers in their original inception. Eventually, they pivoted into being like tech companies as they pioneered streaming as business models and sort of more retail software. But expecting these industries to produce movies is as unnatural as expecting a video rental space to produce movies. And yet it doesn't really feel like anyone really questioned it much until like very recently. I feel like in the past couple of years, it has been like a slow realization that there are a lot of things that are produced by streamers that are not really up to par with more traditional studios that make movies for theatrical release, or I'm going to say even some of the premium or even basic cable channels that are making like prestige TV. I'll be the first one to admit that is a total blanket statement, as there are some things on some streamers that I would hold up as absolutely incredible films and television shows. Netflix, just as a few examples, has given a home to a lot of the work of Mike Flanagan. Austin and I just covered Midnight Mass, Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass on our podcast. So it would be kind of hypocritical of me to say Netflix doesn't make anything good. Midnight Mass is an amazing show. It made the series Glow, which is great. The Queen's Gambit. And last year, they made a show called Ripley, which, aside from being brilliantly written and acted, it's the most visually beautiful TV show I've ever seen. It's even made some true crime documentaries that I love, and I'm not even a true crime guy. Wild Wild Country and Wormwood are amazing. They're put together amazingly well. They're great documentary series. They have, on the other hand, given us such things as Leave the World Behind, which is a movie that is so bafflingly odd, not in a good way odd either. I almost felt secondhand embarrassment for everyone involved when I was watching it, but it's not even really the worst of what they have. You scroll through the entirety of the catalog, you'll find an overwhelming majority of titles that you've never heard of, or they're things that you very vaguely remember watching. They're like the kind of thing you see the poster and you kind of squint at it and you go, oh yeah, I think I kind of remember it. So much just kind of garbage. So much shit is released. It's promoted for a couple days and it's taken off the front page of the app to make room for the next new shit that is releasing the next week. There's very little promotion for anything except for their most popular shows. Everything is buried almost immediately, and the turnover is very high. And in terms of our original metaphor and thought exercise, they have a lot of shelf space, and they need to fill it up with something, so they do. They make content. All of this stuff that they make and turn over and bury, it's just disposable content. A lot has been made of that word in recent years. Content is basically just how you describe something that is only made to fill a platform. It's not an expression of anything. There's not artistic merit to it. It is simply filler. It's like that guy in every company who has an office where he does work, but nobody else understands exactly what he does or why he does it. He's in there all week. He's generating reports and graphs and corporate busy work, and all of those reports go to some other office where they are placed unread into a folder, and they're filed away in a box full of identical folders, which is placed on a shelf full of identical boxes, also full of identical folders. The reports, folders, and boxes, and by extension, the guy who makes them, are content. There's an office to fill, and Calvin, in his tie and short sleeve shirt, carrying his briefcase full of blank legal pads and probably a sleeve of Ritz crackers, because his unnecessary reports certainly don't demand that he take his work home with him, but he still needs to look like he's an important corporate cog. Calvin is happy to fill it. Calvin is content. I gotta be honest, I don't know where I'm going with this, except this is the longest way possible for me to say that most movies and TV and content that is produced by streamers is met with a healthy amount of skepticism and cynicism and pessimism and probably a couple other isms that I can't think of right now. And it's the reason that despite the occasional production of substance, most of it is just there to take up space. That's where I'm going to leave it. That's going to do it for me this time. Please subscribe to my channel so you never miss a video. Go to philrootart.com and see what I've got going on over there. And in the comments below, please leave me your thoughts on this. Leave me your thoughts on streamers that just make content that they don't even seem to care if you watch. They just want to be able to say they have the biggest library of stuff. Leave me your thoughts about that. Tell me what you like that the streamers are producing, and tell me how much of streamer produced content you actually consume, and of that, how much you actually enjoy. Not something you just got through. How much do you actually enjoy it? Because I'm curious. I'm curious if I'm just being kind of a curmudgeon about this. I don't want to come off like, in my day, everything they made was great. And you saw a double feature with a cartoon and a newsreel, and it only cost you a nickel. I'm not trying to be that guy. There's always been a business side of this, of movies and TV, and not everything produced has been quality artistic expression. We all know this. I just feel like there's a real backwards thing going on here. Anyway, leave me a comment on that in the comments. Until we meet again, please take care of yourselves.